5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition, liftoff.
Welcome back. Thank you for joining us on the GHT Overland Podcast. This is where you get the greatest interviews and insights from overland travelers around the globe, learning from their stories and experiences as we interview overlanders from places like Australia, Africa, the Americas, Pakistan, and the UK. You will learn the basics to the advanced in overlanding, so buckle up and get ready for more adventure. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lisa. This is part 2 with Emily and Aaron, the two dusty travelers. Last week we left off as Emily was preparing to fend off lions as Aaron was attempting to repair their rented Land Rover.
Emily's one brave chick.
She's Aaron's lion tamer. He's got it made.
Yes, he does. This week, Emily finishes telling us about their lessons learned during that crazy Land Rover potential lion issue. We also go over mapping software, border crossing tips, and a very important subject that has really started to open our eyes on responsible and ethical travel. Should we get back into it?
Absolutely.
That was a great episode. It was very on the edge of your seat, as we ended with Emily saying, trying to figure out what could I throw at a lion.
Yeah.
All right, let's fire up the engines of that Subaru Forest and get back into it.
Let's go.
And then, so we started driving. We went through the Tsavo East and Tsavo West National Parks. It's really cool. Saw safari. Went on safari by ourselves under our own steam. It was magical. Until the fuel filter died and the fuel pump died in the middle of Tsavo West National Park. So we're in the middle of this Kenyan National Park. There's predators everywhere. There's all sorts of wildlife. We're sitting in this Land Rover that just doesn't go. It's just dead. Like, I have a reasonably good idea of the problem, but I can't fix it when I'm in the middle of the national park. So we ended up finding on our little GPS, we found a safari lodge nearby. So we kind of limped it over there. It died every, 30 seconds. We had to turn it back on, drive a little bit. It died. We kind of limped it over there. We're able to get a hold of the safari company. But the other problem was that there's no cell service in this whole park. So there was a couple of spots where we had cell service. So what we had to do is drive this decrepit Land Rover to the top of this hill. I got on the phone outside of the car because I couldn't get service in the car. So I had to stand outside of the car while Emily stood on top of the car.
He's under the hood with trying to get directions to fix this thing. I'm in the car what could I throw at a lion? Is it which they don't attack humans generally.
Generally.
But,
yeah.
But we were yeah,
exactly. So
it was such a disaster. And it's funny now, but
it's funny now. We call it type 2 fun, where it's horrible during, but we look back on it
later,
now. It's pretty funny. So, long story short, they had the owner of the lodge, or the manager of the lodge, was really sweet, and she put us up in these little tiny bandas. They call the little huts that we got a deal on them, and it was wonderful. And then
this is the lesson for other Land Rovers. There was this big fancy guy with a big fancy setup that made these overland vehicles for a living, and his was amazing. Remember, in the next hut over, and he would not help us. He was such a jerk.
What?
We were like, "Oh, this guy will know," and he'll have some tips. And he was like, "Oh, I just made dinner. Goodbye." And we were like, "Oh, okay, thanks."
Oh my gosh.
He was so mean.
Yeah. That's no good.
It wasn't indicative.
I thought this was a community of overlanders.
It wasn't indicative of the general overland community, but he had a beautiful Land Rover.
He sure did.
It was gorgeous. But, that's the breaks. Ultimately, we got a new car delivered that was pretty
fine.
good. It was fine.
We got out of there. It was fine. We had a blast.
Yeah, we had an
But in
amazing time.
comparison, now when we're in the States and I don't know, the car's acting up, or we don't have as much food as we thought we did, or whatever. It's just in comparison, we're like, it'll be fine. Nothing will eat us.
Yep, there's no lions nearby that won't make us lunch.
It'll be totally fine in comparison.
It really gave us perspective, but it also, we learned a lot. And so I know now, I always give Forrest a complete once-over before we go. If I see a bushing that's cracked or anything that looks a little worn, I just replace it right away.
Yeah, he drives me crazy if there's any kind of sound. I would say once an hour. He's like rolling the window down. I'm like, what's that sound? I'm like, what are you doing?
No repeats on that one.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So tell us about your process for planning your overland trips, along with either a daily or weekly planning that you found that works pretty good for you.
Yeah, we rely heavily on the Gaia app to tell us where we can camp, and that kind of decides. We give a general idea of where we're going to be each day, and then we just dive into wherever Gaia tells us is BLM or National Forest land and find somewhere to camp. Our big trip through the western U.S. national parks, we just planned what parks we wanted to go to and had a pretty loose itinerary. Same in Africa, really. We assume things are gonna take longer, or we're gonna like a place more than we thought we would, or the opposite, we're gonna get somewhere and be like, we don't actually want to stay here for 3 days, and leave it pretty loose, but generally have a start date and points we want to hit along the way.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other software that you use besides Gaia GPS? Do you use iOverlander or anything else?
Yeah, we use heavily iOverlander too.
Yeah.
Although we just did the Oregon coast last week, and it's hard with iOverlander because a lot of them are just boondocking in camper vans or something like that, and so they can just pull over the side of the road and camp. And so a lot of the spots on iOverlander, at least on the Oregon coast, are pullouts and things like that, where we look kind of ridiculous with our giant bright orange rooftop tent folded out.
Yeah, we're a little more conspicuous.
We're a little bit more conspicuous. So generally, we love iOverlander, but you have to be kind of a little bit more selective of what you use.
Okay, and have you found on Gaia GPS, is there a map that you always download that generally for the Pacific Northwest has everything you're looking for?
So, yes. We use the Neotrex land use layer.
Okay.
It's in premium Gaia. It is the absolute best because it gives us land ownership, and it just has like a really comprehensive a list of trails in there too. So we swear by it. It's been amazing. I think it's only done us dirty a couple of times.
Yeah.
Yeah, generally I'm always impressed, even of the littlest roads. They're on there. So we'll generally look for a river or a body of water or anything like that. That we think we can get close to based on Gaia, and it's spot on.
Mm-hmm. And then we also use Google Maps. We always download the areas where we're going to be offline, just in case.
As a quick side note for our listeners, we have a past episode with Ashley from Gaia GPS, and we cover all the ins and outs of using Gaia GPS.
Yeah, great episode.
I think we've used Gaia GPS for the last 2 to 3 years now.
Yeah, it's an awesome app.
And I absolutely love having the plethora of different maps available in different layers, like the land ownership that you mentioned. So if you're interested, definitely worth a listen. Ashley even goes through how to print those maps, a feature I was not aware of.
Could not be happier with it.
So border crossings, have you guys done any border crossings that you could give us some ideas on tips for preparing for them?
Yeah, I mean, our only border crossings have been in Africa. We've gone back and forth between Kenya and Tanzania about 1 million times.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is true for border crossings everywhere, but our best tip for Africa is just relax and assume it's going to take forever. And yeah, don't be in a hurry because you're not going to get through there quickly. It's not that anything is going to go wrong, likely. It's just that stuff is slow, and by being typically American about it and being pushy, you're not going to get anywhere any faster than if you just are chill.
Basically, just move past your preconceived notion of the U.S.-Canada border, because it's not going to be like that.
But also, do your research. because like I said, we've been back and forth between Kenya and Tanzania a million times. And the last time we were there, which was with a group of friends, so they expected us to know what we were doing, all of a sudden they were like, oh, you need to have $100, the tourist visa fee, you had to have $100 bills that were newer than 2000 or something, like newer than the year 2000 or something like that.
Yeah.
Some random new rule that like we weren't aware of. And we were like, well, we don't have them. Like we all have crisp $100 bills for this, but they're not newer than the year 2000 or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
So
Interesting.
yeah, try to have everything you think they possibly could need, and most of the time they won't ask you. Like they also sometimes want your proof of your yellow fever vaccination in several African countries.
Yeah.
But I always have it with me and they never ask for it. But I'm sure the one time I don't, they'll ask for it.
So
The one thing that I was worried about that actually was not a problem at all is, you know, I'm a photographer. I love photography, and I carry thousands and thousands of dollars worth of gear with me when I do these border crossings. And I've always been so horrified that they're going to go through and like, what's this? What's this used for? I'm going to confiscate this. I don't know what this is. Because I have, you know, flashes and weird cords and battery backups and all sorts of weird garbage. And it's never been a problem ever.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
We haven't taken our drone yet, though. We were just talking about this because I'm going back to Southern Africa in October, and I'm like wondering if the drone is going to be an issue. So stay tuned.
Yeah.
Do you use like a small Mavic that might get through?
Yeah. So we have a Mavic Pro, and it'll probably get through. But, you know, it's one of these things where drone photography is still kind of in its infancy. And so a lot of people are kind of suspicious about what it is.
Interesting. Yeah, that would be really interesting to know in a different country.
Mm-hmm.
I think people in the U.S. are finally starting to get used to it. And okay, you're not trying to spy on me. But in other countries, I have no idea where they're at with that.
We've taken it to El Salvador. We've taken it to Aruba.
Yeah, no one's ever
it's never been an issue at
no one's
all.
ever asked, but
you know, it's also my baby.
The photos we would get on safari would be ridiculous. Yeah. So it's so tempting.
Yeah, those would be sweet. Just package it up to make it look as much like a camera.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly right. Take the propellers off.
Yeah.
Do all that stuff.
Put them in a completely different bag.
Exactly.
Right on. So do you guys have any insight on a border crossing, hiring an agent or paying bribes, not paying bribes? Where are you coming from there?
We've never had to pay any bribes or hire an agent to get across any of the borders. I think because we usually travel so small and so light that it hasn't been an issue.
And I think often we've been traveling with friends who are locals, which helps too. Or if you even like anywhere you go, if you even just learn a little bit of the language, just enough to make it seem like you're a little savvier than the average person who knows maybe nothing about crossing a border in this place, you're less likely to get taken advantage of. On the other hand, I've also done, like, I do some disaster response stuff as a nurse. And in my training, which I totally agree with, they're like, if you feel threatened or in danger in any way, just give them the money. You know, it's not worth whatever risk. It's not worth your life or the cost of, you know, whatever. What's it going to be? $50? I don't know. If that, just give it to them. It's not worth it.
Any specific safety planning you do or tips you can provide our listeners on safety and security?
Yeah, I mean, Aaron is in charge of safety as far as the safety of the vehicle. I gave him so much crap when he bought all of the recovery equipment at the beginning, and then we've used it all, so I was wrong.
Joke's on her.
I'm like, is this necessary? But then when we're on the road, I'm like, well, I want to go to that place. So, and he's like, well, if you want to get on that road, then maybe you need to use this equipment. So
a perfect example is, you know, like we had Max tracks, and Emily was like, this is stupid. Why are we bringing them? They take up so much weight. But then we got into the deep sand, and we didn't want to air down, so we shoved the Max tracks under there and got out just fine.
We got a sweet camping site.
Yeah, we got a great campsite out of it. And then, you know, things like the snatch strap, we helped pull a giant tour van full of Austrian tourists out of a hole where they high centered because they didn't know what they were doing. So it's like one of those things where you think it's superfluous until you need it.
Yeah.
And now you're just like, you're good. I can't live without it.
Yeah.
So safety wise, that's about it there. I mean, security wise, we've never really felt in danger of our lives. We don't carry any sort of weapon or anything with us.
No.
I
mean, our big rule anywhere, whether it's here or abroad, is to just be super friendly and get to know people and be kind, rather than starting off from like a defensive place and assuming that anyone means you harm. And maybe that's naive. I know some people think it is, but it's always worked quite well for us.
Yeah. And in all reality, we've spent tons of time in Nairobi and I've never felt unsafe. I think one of the things you just have to do is just, exercise common sense.
Yeah, we don't go driving around in the middle of the night or flashing any of our fancy equipment around or anything like that. And everyone always, someone back home always knows where we are all the time. And we may say, this is where we're headed. We're going to be out of phone service. If you don't hear back from us at this time on this day, alert the authorities. Yeah. But everyone knows when to expect us back and when to start worrying.
How do you manage changing currency as you travel into and out of different countries?
It's been really actually easy for us because, we're in the modern age of technology now. We just got a debit card that doesn't have international fees. And for the most part, we just go to an ATM in the country that we need to do and get the cash out that we need. We never do any of the Forex bureaus or the, exchange places that you see on the side of the road or in the airports. Really hasn't been an issue for us. And in all reality, too, I mean, this sounds kind of conceited, but American currency is accepted pretty much anywhere, too.
Yeah, it's crazy. We were just in El Salvador, and they used the U.S. dollar, so we didn't have to exchange anything. And it was the same in Aruba, wasn't it?
It was the same in Aruba, too.
Is it a Charles Schwab account that you use, or what is it that you are using?
No, we have we actually use a Capital One. They have it's called Capital One 360. It's just an online savings and checking account that we use, and it's been phenomenal for us. No foreign transaction fees, no nothing.
And we're big into, we play the travel credit card game as well. So we have some credit cards with no international fees that we put every possible thing on, and that's what pays for flights sometimes or cars sometimes.
Yeah.
So
play those points.
Yeah.
Okay. Navigation and communication. How do you make sure you know where you're at and you don't get lost? Anything you're using besides Gaia GPS for that?
I mean, we have Gaia on the iPad. We have a little dual brand GPS, a little receiver that we tether everything to in the car. We always have a paper map, or we try to always have a paper map of where we're going to. Just in case. But, I mean, I'm a technology junkie. And so, I mean, on any given trip, we had 4 iPhones on our last trip, and an iPad. And I downloaded...
We keep ending up with people's iPhones that they insist are broken, and so they, give them to Aaron, and then he fixes them, and then so now we just have them.
I've got about 7 or 8 right now. But iPhones have a GPS chip in them. And so what I do is I just download Google Maps and Gaia Maps on all the iPhones. So I have a lot of redundancy and call it good.
For our trip through over in Idaho and Utah, and we had an extra iPhone with a Verizon SIM in it because at a certain place normally we use T-Mobile because they don't charge fees to go almost anywhere. We get slow data and text for free almost anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
It's nuts. So we have T-Mobile mostly, but when we were taking this trip, we knew there would be places where maybe we'd have Verizon service better. So sometimes we'd have both phones out, which one's working right now?
And our plan is to get one of the Garmin InReaches soon, so that we have, a little bit more security and the button.
Yeah, for the next Africa trip, for sure, we want to.
Okay, so that was my next question. Nice going. So any other emergency backup that you currently use besides, obviously you don't have a Garmin InReach, but any other way if you don't have cell service to reach the outside world?
No, we really try to, make sure that multiple people back home know exactly where we're going. So, I mean, our plans change a little bit, but for the most part, they don't. I mean, we're able to update people relatively easily of where we are. So we just make sure that we communicate clearly with them.
Every time we pass through a service area, we're like, this is where we are. This is where we're going.
Yeah.
This is when to expect us.
We don't have a CV or a ham on the Forester yet. I'm still trying to figure out antennas for that and get my ham license. But we have little FRS radios that we keep too, just in case.
Oh, that's good for communication if you meet up with somebody
or just, you spam all the channels you can if you're in trouble, and hopefully somebody hears you.
Okay. And we talked about it a little bit, but let's dive in a little bit deeper on vehicle maintenance and repair. What is your standard pre-trip planning process so that you're confident in your vehicle before you leave home?
Wow. That's a great question. I basically go over the entire vehicle. I check my belts. I check my hoses. I check all the bushings. I check the CV joints. I check the, wheel bearings, the tie rod ends. I check everything, go through it with a fine-tooth comb, and just replace anything that I'm in doubt of. And then, double check the tires, make sure they're good, balance the wheels, rotate the tires, make sure the full-size spare is in good shape. And then it's just go through all the gear. I keep a complete set of tools and jack stands in the car when we go on a trip. So, I have a wrench for every single nut or bolt. And I, fuses, wires, baling wire, all that stuff available just in case.
Okay. And how do you plan for those remote road repairs? It sounds like you've got plenty of equipment with you with your specific vehicle. Have you figured out like different parts that you need to have with you?
So one of the things that is, a struggle with the Subaru Forester is its independent suspension all the way around. So you deal with a lot of CV joints and CV axles. So what I keep in my toolbox is I keep an extra CV boot if I need to reboot it, because 9 times out of 10 you may tear a boot or something like that, and then your CV joints are screwed. So I keep a boot. I keep a little bit of grease. I keep welding rods and baling wire in there. So if I need to do like a weld off a 12 volt or 24 volt battery or something like that, I can get away with that. But pretty much for the most part, I have in my toolkit every single thing that I'll need to fix almost anything in the car. I keep, an extra accessory belt too, an extra serpentine belt, just in case I need that.
Okay. And do you guys carry one spare tire or two?
We carry one.
Perfect. What's that favorite piece of gear you've either got on or in your vehicle that you would never leave on a trip without?
Oh my gosh. I mean, besides my toolkits, I think my Max Tracks.
Okay.
Those things are amazing.
They've saved us for sure.
Yeah, they've gotten us out of some sticky situations. It's always nice to be able to self-recover.
Yes,
and we've been lucky too. Like Aaron, we really relied on some like Facebook groups we've been in, and the Overland Bound group, when we had our little gas can,
our jerry can holder
snapped off when we were in Utah somewhere, and we were like, shit, we need to weld this thing back on. And Aaron asked his friends on a Facebook group, and there was someone nearby who was like, yeah, come on over, we'll weld it together, we'll help you out.
Yep.
It's a really great community.
Perfect. Yep. Okay, let's go through some onboard necessities real quick. How much fuel can you carry, and how far does that take you?
We have, we have a 16-gallon fuel tank, and then we carry a 20-liter jerry can, so a 5-gallon jerry can full of fuel. Fully laden, because the Forester is just a little 4-cylinder, fully laden, it actually has to work real hard. So we're getting, Land Cruiser gas mileage. So, we're looking at 18, 19 highway right now when we're fully laden. So that's usually around 280, 300 miles a tank.
Okay. And how do you manage water use? Any specific setup that you've got for purifying water so that you can drink water? And how much do you carry with you?
We, I just redid our whole rear bumper. I welded up a new dual jerry can holder in the back. So we keep our 5-gallon gas jerry can. Then we bought the 5-gallon front runner jerry can with a little spout. And so that goes in our dual swing in the back. And that, it's 5 gallons of clean water. And then we also keep a 2.5 gallon water bag in the car. So, 7.5 gallons, we're usually pretty good considering we go through maybe a gallon per person per day, if that.
And you've got your water purifier, and we're quite fortunate in the Pacific Northwest to have a lot of fairly clean water.
Yeah.
In many places you're going to camp. Yeah.
And do you guys use solar on your setup for electricity?
Yeah.
Yes. So we have a 100 watt solar briefcase. The electronics in the car, I kind of did a lot of research in figuring out how exactly, a lot of overland electrical systems work. And I did not want to spend, thousands of dollars buying these expensive, fancy ones that you can get through a dual battery setup. So I basically figured out how they were made and then just made my own. So we have I have a voltage sensitive relay, which connects to my main battery, which then also charges when the main battery is charged. It switches over to our 105 amp hour house battery in the back. And then that is also able to be used with our 100 watt solar briefcase that we just bought a monocrystalline panel off of Amazon for like $100. And it works out great, and that charges our battery just fine. And then from there, our fridge plugs in, and our house lights and everything all plug into a little switch bank that I made in the back of our drawers.
Cool.
Yeah, it works out really well.
Now, how would you define responsible travel?
Yeah, that's a big one for us. I mean, like I was saying at the beginning of the show, for us, it's all about being intentional about the choices that you make. And this applies to, we do travel other than overlanding too, deciding where you're going, where you're staying, how you spend your money. For us, it's a big deal to use your tourism dollars responsibly, try to inject them into the local community or into like national parks or somewhere where it's going to do some good rather than into big hotel chains. I think that's probably what led us into overlanding partially in the beginning, was wanting to get off the beaten path, get off of huge tourism centers and have unique experiences for ourselves. And that's a lot of responsible travel for us, taking some of the heat off big tourist centers. There are places, it's true of our national parks, it's true of beaches in Thailand, it's true of big cities in Europe, that they're getting so many tourists, so much pressure, that they're destroying these places that we really should be treasuring and loving and treating carefully. So I think it all connects for us.
We try to live by the principle of leave no trace, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with, which is, you go into a place, be it a Forest Service road up in the Cascade Mountains or, a beach in Belize or something like that. And you always try to leave a place better than you found it. So every time we leave camp, our trasheroo is always full of other people's trash that we're taking out with us. And it's just, our public lands and our nature is under threat. Mm-hmm. And we need to take care of it the best that we can.
And actually, on this recent trip, we were going through so many national parks and for the first time really learning the history of like the indigenous peoples who lived there before they were national parks, and hooking up with some other bloggers and people who write about this sort of thing. Recently, we've really been making more of an effort to learn that history and recognize the history of the places that we visit. So like when we check in on Instagram or write about our place on our blog, we recognize or take note or mention the indigenous tribes that lived there before they were moved off to make it a national park, which is the history of most of our national parks, which doesn't mean we have to like stop going to national parks or, feel terrible about going to them or anything, but it's important to recognize that history. So we really started involving that in more of our travels as well.
I absolutely love that message, especially the cleaning up. I don't know what it's like in a lot of other parts of the world, mm-hmm. but I know especially in the Pacific Northwest, you could definitely feel a trasheroo coming back from pretty much anywhere you go.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely. And getting that message out there to do some cleanup, even if it's not your garbage, get it out of there, keep things clean, and to learn more about the history of a place you're going, whether it be in the Pacific Northwest or Thailand. understanding what that is and making the lowest impact possible.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. So any philanthropy that you guys do, giving back, inspiring others, or opportunities that you've seen that our listeners could take advantage of when they're out on their travels?
Yeah, actually, I'm about to go set off on an overland trip through Southern Africa in October that I stumbled upon, fortunately, and it's an all-women overland trip through Namibia, Botswana, and South Africa, and they'll be visiting wildlife conservation organizations and trying to raise awareness and funds about the work that they're doing. So I'm super stoked for that.
That's awesome. What's the name of the group that you're going with?
Yeah, the organization's called Blue Sky Society, and they're based out of South Africa. And This trip is called Rise of the Matriarch, which is why I was like, yes, I want to go on that trip. So yeah, this is, I want to say it's their second or third time running a trip like this, and they're going to be doing more. So if people are interested in that, check that out for sure. And I also, this is just tangential, but we've both volunteered abroad quite a bit. We lived in Tanzania volunteering for several months, and there's a lot written about it on our blog, but I think people have such good intentions and so want to help, and volunteering is so popular right now, but do your research before you do it, because there's a lot of ways to actually do a lot of damage if you don't know what you're getting into first. So I would say, if you want to do good in a place that you're visiting, honestly, like, visit a lesser known place, spend your money at local business, tell everyone how great it is, because a lot of people are afraid to visit, developing countries. And that's a good thing in and of itself.
Yeah, love it. Anything that we've missed?
I don't think so.
No, I think, we nailed it.
Perfect.
So let's wrap it up with some fun facts about you guys.
Okay.
Any fun hobbies or things you've done on the road you always wanted to do or never expected to do?
Oh, man. Traveling through Africa is that constantly, I think, because things are so unexpected. So that trip in Kenya, really, like, fixing the car on the fly and just figuring out as we went, really made us realize how much more creative we can be when we need to be. But what else have we done on the road?
I mean, we listen to a lot of podcasts on the road, yours included.
Perfect.
Yeah,
nailed it. And we're trying to get into audiobooks, but unfortunately,
oh my gosh, we like opposite books.
We like the opposite kinds of books. So there's been some
headphones.
Yeah,
right. So other than that, I mean, we don't carry a ukulele with us or anything like that. We couldn't fit it in the car. So
we do a lot of podcasting, and we often have our dog with us, which is endless entertainment, really.
Oh my gosh.
What's your dog's name?
Jude.
And what is Jude? What kind of dog?
Well, she's a rescue, so we think she's blue heeler, and we think pointer. But she just, as long as she has her ball with her, she's very happy. Mm-hmm. But it's turning into quite the road trip dog. So she's our entertainment on the road. Really, we're constantly like, look what Jude's doing in the back seat.
It's kind of pathetic.
She's our entertainment.
So maybe that answers the question: what keeps your co-driver occupied on long drives?
Oh my gosh, yeah,
it's Jude.
She does. She really does. And we do the blog a lot while we're traveling as well. So often Erin very kindly is driving while I'm in the passenger seat, like trying to finish a blog post or like get something up on Instagram or, answer some questions or something like that.
Yeah. What's
your favorite drink in the morning to get you guys going?
Oh man. Well, coffee, obviously. I'm not a big coffee guy. I love coffee, but I'm not like a fancy coffee guy. I don't bring a French press or anything like that. So a lot of the times it's just like Starbucks Via in my cup with some boiled water, good to go.
And as the resident nurse on the trip, I'm always trying to keep everyone hydrated. So I'm like getting up every morning and filling all the Nalgene's. And like at the end of the day, I'm like, Erin, your Nalgene is full. What are you doing? Like, why haven't you had any water?
Yeah, I struggle with that. Other than that,
okay.
Sometimes I wish Bloody Marys, but it seems like way too much work to make them. So not
Yeah,
Bloody
it would be a
Marys.
little bit of work, but
Yeah, right.
sometimes it might be worth it. What's a favorite beverage at night to wind down after a long day on the road?
Just beer.
Yeah.
Man,
Good cold beer.
A
a good cold beer. I think in the evening time when the sun goes down, you give me a good strong IPA or something like that, and I'm a happy boy.
But we're not picky.
Perfect.
But really, like when we're in Africa, whatever the local beer is,
Yeah.
that's fun.
Anywhere
Oh,
overseas,
God,
really.
these-
Anywhere overseas, we try to
horrific.
drink.
But in Tanzania, they have these little like tiny little plastic bag satchel things full of gin that you like rip open and like I guess you're supposed to drink it all.
Imagine
at
a
once.
giant ketchup packet filled with gin.
Yeah, but it's horrible. It's awful, and it's terrible for the environment because they're all over the ground. Like, but when we're there, we're like, you got to have a little satchel of Konyagi gin,
Yep,
or you're not in
always.
Tanzania.
Yep.
Somebody was saying in South America they had a gin and tonic like in a can, like a
Yes.
Oh my God.
Where were we?
We were in Australia. So
yeah.
my family's Australian. I was born there. My mom and dad and little sister lived down there. And my little sister was getting married. So we went down to Australia. They do mixed drinks in cans.
Yeah.
Basically everywhere
Yeah.
else in the world but the States for some reason. So you can buy a gin and tonic in a can. You can buy Jack Daniels and Coke in a can.
Yeah, you'd be doing G&Ts if we could do that.
If
here,
that
for
was
sure.
the case, I would be mainlining G&Ts all the time.
After we were camped.
After we're
we
stopped
were
driving,
camped.
obviously.
Obviously.
But yeah, a cold gin and tonic, there's nothing like that after a hot day.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
What is your best advice to aspiring overlanders like us?
This is a great question. I'm very passionate about this. I can't say it enough. It doesn't matter what you drive. It doesn't matter. As long as you can get to where you want to go safely, you're good. There's a community I'm sure you guys have heard of. I'm sure most people have, called Overland Bound, which is a big online community that is very controversial right now in some overland circles, but it's never been problematic for me. And it's just, connect with other people in your community, reach out and just go out there, just get out there. Even if it's driving your Toyota Camry with a tent in the back up a Forest Service road and camping there, I mean, you're overlanding and you're good. Start small, do what you can. On Facebook, there will be groups for every single kind of overland vehicle. I'm in a bunch of Subaru overlanding groups right now, and we trade information, we talk to each other, and we support each other. And I know there's a 4Runner group, I know there's a JK group, I know there's a Land Cruiser group, everything. So you just get keyed into a community and network, but at the end of the day, just get out there and try it.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously don't have the most professional setup, and I think we've often felt like, or at least when we were getting started, like it can be intimidating, like we don't have enough stuff, or we don't have the best car, or we don't have whatever, but we're having a blast. And
we started out with
fine,
a 2000 Audi A4 wagon.
Yeah, when we first got the rooftop tent, just
got
threw it
the
on your
rooftop
car.
tent, stuck it on top of the Audi. It did fine. I think,
and it's about those experiences. I would totally agree that, like a group like Overland Bound and all the different social media groups, that community is very tight knit and very helping of each other. And I think that example that you gave when you were in Utah is a perfect example of that. You can reach out to some people and say, "Hey, can somebody help me out with this?" And 9 times out of 10, as long as they get a message, there's going to be somebody that can jump in and help out.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
We've found that everywhere.
It's never, ever been a negative experience for me. Ever.
That's great. How can people learn more about you and what you're doing? Any social media accounts? You mentioned your website a little bit earlier, but give us that breakdown, website, social media accounts so people can connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is www.twodustytravelers.com. You spell out the word two, TWO, dustytravelers.com. And all of our social media handles are the same, just Two Dusty Travelers. We're really, really active on Instagram. We're pretty active on Facebook. We're active on Pinterest.
Yeah.
We have a Twitter account.
Yeah, I know. What is happening? What is Twitter, guys?
We're still trying to figure out what Twitter is, really.
We're not even that old, and I feel like I'm too old to understand what Twitter is.
That's great.
I'm like, how do I use it?
But, we're really, really active. And we always try to respond within at least, a day.
Okay. And on your blog post, what kind of information can people expect to find on your blog?
Yeah, like we said, we're super passionate about responsible travel. We've talked a lot about the overlanding aspect of what we do, which is a big aspect for sure, but we're passionate about responsible travel in all aspects. I talk a lot about how to volunteer ethically without making a mess. And I mean, it applies to a million different things. How to go and see animals while you're traveling ethically, how to leave no trace, all that good stuff. And I'm super excited to be blogging about the overland trip in Southern Africa that's coming up. So that'll be in October. So I'll be blogging about that. That'll be exciting.
She'll be blowing up the internet there.
Hopefully.
And actually, we just made a ethical travel resources page, which is really cool. So, you can go there, and we have a bunch of organizations in our Plan Your Trip section that we have vetted that are really ethical and promote responsible travel. Mm-hmm. And then we now have a Learn More like ethical resources page where you can go and just get tons of information on how to do whatever you can imagine you want to do in an ethical fashion.
Yeah, we have the same philosophy on ethical and responsible travel as we do on overlanding, which is just to do the best you can. No one's perfect. No one's expecting you to live a zero waste lifestyle and have a no carbon footprint and never get on a plane again or anything like that. But yeah, we have a ton of resources on our blog where you can kind of figure out what aspect of responsible travel are you really into? Are you into animals or conservation or doing social impact travel and giving back while you travel? There's all sorts of stuff on there where you can figure out, pick your aspect and do that the best you can.
Yeah. And don't feel bad if you make mistakes. We've learned most of our stuff by
by messing up,
acting unethically, and then we realize
by accident, and then learning better,
and then realizing about it later.
That's like life, right? We all learn by our mistakes.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I love those resources. That's going to be a great resource for our listeners. So be sure and check out the show notes page for the link directly to those, and we'll get that. Any more information, guys, you'd like to give or useful resources our listeners should check out?
I think just join those overlanding communities.
Yeah.
And get out there and do it. That's really what it boils down to.
Good advice. I love it. So, hey, guys, thank you so much for your time. We are absolutely humbled that you've given us such an amazing look into your world and your experiences. So safe travels and adventures to you. I'm really looking forward to Emily blowing up the internet in October. And we hope we can catch up with you again sometime soon.
Yeah, for sure.
On. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah, very good. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right,
see you guys.
Bye.
Absolutely fascinating. What a great interview with the two dusty travelers. Being smart and basically aware of your actions and choices is really important. So I really enjoyed listening to their viewpoints on responsible and ethical travel. It seems even more so in developing countries.
So this subject we really need to learn more about.
Agreed.
Erin and Emily's blog post on ethical travel and volunteering is extremely well done.
Yep.
So be sure and check that out. We posted it on social media as well as listing it in our show notes.
Another good interview to listen to is the What the Faux podcast, and that's PHO. It's not an overlanding podcast, it's a travel podcast, but they did a really good episode titled Learn Volunteering that also goes through a lot of that. So if you're looking to go into developing countries and doing volunteering and that sort of thing, and you're doing more overlanding outside of the U.S., great episode to listen to. And Forest is a really cool setup.
I do like the smaller platform.
Yeah, I always respect a fellow MacGyver. So Erin has made a lot of improvements to their Subaru based on their needs and style of travel. Very impressive. So Erin and Emily, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. We learned a ton, and it was a lot of fun talking with you. Okay, we're going to do something completely new, Lisa. Are you ready for this? Because it's very not prepared on your part. We're going to do a little test to see what your retention of the episode, mainly episode 1, with Erin and Emily was. Are you ready for that?
I'm ready as I'll be.
You look
but
nervous.
You always give me tests.
I wonder if you sound as nervous as you look.
I think so.
All right, so number one question. What was the top piece of gear?
Their tent.
Yes. Wow, very good.
Excuse me, rooftop tent.
Well, yeah, it's a rooftop tent. Do you remember the brand? Bonus points.
I want to say something Summit.
No.
Oh.
Dun.
I've been gone.
Free Spirit.
Oh, Free Spirit. Okay.
Yeah. Top piece of recovery gear.
Max Trucks.
I'm so impressed. Yes, that's awesome.
I know.
All right, you ready for the next one?
Yes.
What were their 3 favorite places?
Aruba?
Of course you remember Aruba.
Yes. Chile?
Dun.
Oh, hold on. It was the high road.
Wrong interview. Aaron and Emily are not going to even give you eye contact when they meet you.
I'll have a beer in my hand.
That might help.
Will that help?
Utah
Oh, right.
was
Shoot.
number 1 because I had recently gone to Utah. I'm trying to think of the pronunciation for the other one because I don't have it in front of me. The Angora Crater in Tanzania.
Okay,
I hope I'm saying that right because I didn't put it in front of me.
Yeah.
No cheating allowed on the GHT Overland Podcast. Favorite recipes?
They didn't have one.
You're right. They did not have an actual recipe. So let's replace that with what was their favorite food. Dun, dun, dun,
Any current alcoholic drink wherever they went.
No. Wrong interview. Triscuits
Oh, Triscuits and tuna fish.
and sharp cheddar
Oh,
cheese or
cheddar
cheddar cheese. I don't remember if it was sharp or not, but cheese, Triscuits, and tuna fish.
Yes.
And a good beer.
Yes.
Oh,
wow.
I was very surprised. Coming from Seattle, I thought they would be much more foodies, but they were definitely not foodies.
So, I got 50-50.
Oh, I didn't add them up. You have 100% in my book.
It's a good idea to visit the show notes page on our website at ghtoverland.com/podcast. Select the Two Dusty Travelers episode. All the details and helpful links are already there for you.
Send your questions, suggestions, and feedback to ghtoverlandpodcast@gmail.com. If you have an Amazon Echo, be sure to tell Alexa, play the GHT Overland Podcast. We'd love it if you'd connect with us on social media at GHT Overland. Be sure to share this episode with your friends who enjoy travel off the beaten path. Overland Travel is all about meeting new friends, seeing the most amazing places on earth, and of course, new food and new drinks.
Do you have a favorite drink or food recipe for overlanding? We'd love to feature it and you. Send them to ghtoverlandpodcast@gmail.com.
Would Triscuits and tuna fish qualify?
You can't forget the cheese. Before you race off, it would mean the world to us if you rate and review the podcast. Give GHT Overland a little podcast love so we can reach as many overlanders as possible. Thank you, and we will see you next Thursday for a brand new episode of the GHT Overland Podcast. Bye.
I can't wait. It's a really good one.